We've already covered Isaiah chapter 10. Okay, I'm ready to begin my story. How did I come to Christ? And I've got some scripture to share with you along with my story. My story starts at age 6. Now, my parents, a lot of people think Jewish people are very wealthy. No. There's a lot of Jewish people that have very modest means. Now, this is one of the, I don't know what it is, but everybody thinks everybody Jewish is very wealthy. I grew up in a little red, one-story red brick house. We had about 1,250 square feet. We had one bathroom. Now, I have no brothers and sisters, so it was my mom and my dad and me, and we had one bathroom for the three of us. We had 2 bedrooms, and like I said, about 1,250 square feet, which ain't too big. One-story brick house they purchased in 1953 up, do you know where Nora, everybody knows where Nora is. Okay, we were just north of Nora at 95th and Central Avenue, and that's where I grew up. And in 1953, my parents and I was 3 years old, moved into that house, and we didn't have much. My father was a graphic artist. I'll tell you more about him in a minute, but he always struggled to make a living. So there were the 3 of us. In 1956, I'm getting off the school bus. I'm coming home, and I'm literally walking down the steps of the school bus when all of a sudden, it happened so fast, I found out later it was a 12-year-old boy that jumped on top of me, and he pushed me off the bus, and I was underneath him, and he began hitting me like this. And I was just a little kid. He was 12, I was 6, and I got out from under him, and I ran as fast as I could for our front door. Well, it turns out there was a family across the way from our house, directly across from us, where they were very anti-Semitic. They hated Jews. And they had trained this 12-year-old boy to hate Jews. Well, he knew who I was, and I got off the bus, and one day he decides to start trying to beat me up. Well, it all ended up over in the principal's office, and it was a classic case of anti-Semitism. Now, in the years that followed, growing up in the 1950s, my father, like I said, he was an artist, a graphic artist. He had a little studio downtown Indianapolis, but he got a lot of work from Eli Lilly. Now, this is before computer graphics. And he did artwork by hand using one of those big easels. And he did artwork for Eli Lilly for a lot of their products. When they put out their pamphlets, he did a lot of their pamphlets. Well, I used to hear my mother and father talking at night about all the anti-Semitism within Eli Lilly. Now, he got work from a few other companies also, but a lot of his work from Lilly's. And my poor dad was always struggling with people who didn't like him for no other reason that he was Jewish. So I grew up with that. And kind of Jewish people get to understand anti-Semitism at a very early age. Now, when I was 10 years old, one night my parents had a man over for dinner. And he told his story, and to this day, every time I go through this, it chokes me up. He grew up in Germany, and this was 1960, and he was an older man. His entire family got put in a concentration camp, and everyone in his family perished in the concentration camp, but he was a cabinet maker, and Hitler needed him to make cabinets, so they kept him alive in the camps because he built the various cabinet work. Well, his entire family died. He was alive when the Allies liberated the camps. He made it to America, and my parents befriended this man. And he came over to our house for dinner. It was about 1960. I think I was about 10 years old. He comes over and he tells his story. Now, I'm just a little kid, but I already knew about anti-Semitism. I had experienced it personally. And after dinner, he does this. He undoes his shirt, and I can vividly see it. And right here was the mark branded on him by Hitler. Now, I don't know if you know this, and many Christians don't, but in the concentration camps, the Jews were branded with a mark. Now, something should click immediately in your brain when I said that. The mark of the beast is in our near future. After the rapture, people are going to be told to take a chip either right here or a chip right here, and you can't buy or sell without the chip. Now, that's in Revelation chapter 13, verses 16 through 18, if you want to look it up later. We're approaching the mark right now. Now, I'll tell you something. I wasn't going to get into this, and I don't want to spend time on it, but this mask mandate is a trial run on compliance and control to get the population ready for the mark of the beast after the rapture of the church. Don't get me started, because I could talk about these masks a long time. And I debated this morning about talking about this. I will later. I'm not going to say anything right now about these masks. I'm a dentist, specifically an orthodontist, and ever since the 1980s, every time I go to work on a patient, I put on a mask. That's out of politeness, because my head and their mouth are about this far apart. So ever since the 1980s, I always put on a mask. All dentists do that. I know more about masks than most of you, because I've dealt with them since the 1980s. Now, I'm going to let it go there, because we have other things to do. But this mask mandate is a trial run for the mark to see if people will be compliant and can be controlled. I'll say one thing, and I better stop. Paper masks, cloth masks would be like putting up a chain link fence to stop a mosquito, guys. They don't work. All right? Now, everybody has the right to do whatever you feel in your conscience to do. I would never tell you what to do or not to do. That's your own conscience. But they don't work. Okay? I'm going to let it go at that, because we could spend the rest of our time on this.